Come to order. Let's see, questions on the agenda? On the consent agenda?
Yes, sir.
Tom?
I just wondered what the union football is at Riverdale is in June.
I couldn't hear. I couldn't hear you, Don.
Union football, I think is what it is. Let me go back.
Is that a facilities use?
Yes, sir.
There you go.
It was a pretty hefty fee, and I just wondered what.
Oh, yeah, $1,000 a day. Football union. 3-day football clinic, it looks like.
I think it's, Angel, you got the form that was submitted on that, the river. Can you explain?
I can't give you an answer specifically on that one because I haven't asked that question, but generally the fee is based on the amount of time and the amount of building or equipment that they're using. So I would assume they're using a large amount of the building, lights, some other equipment probably, and I think it's 3 days if I remember right.
It is.
So I can ask those questions and answer, but I didn't ask those specifically for that one.
It was just when I was going over it, it was just
It is more than usual.
Well, we'll get an answer for tomorrow night. How about that?
Other questions on the consent agenda?
Sure.
Grant?
On the, have the routine bids here, but on the portable classrooms, we haven't looked at that very much lately, and I'd like for us to tomorrow evening at least go over that. It gives the public idea how expensive these things are and what we're having to do to, temporary fixes until we get to regular classrooms.
We put out our annual request for portable. I think we had about 25, 28, something like that. We're obviously trying to whittle that number down to purchase as few as possible, especially given we're about to open Stewart's Creek High School, which will free up multiple portables at the high school. But typically a double portable costs us about $70,000 cost and setup, doesn't it, Jeff? Gary, ballpark? So it's in the vicinity of that. If you want more information, we'll track it out. But it's pretty close to $55,000 for a single, I think, isn't it, Ms. Clardy?
Yes.
70 for a double. That includes cost and setup.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if we could, if we have time tomorrow night, we could let the public see it and see the actual bids that come in.
Okay, sure.
I think it would be of education for them.
Yeah, we do that.
I don't know if we've done it this academic year, but you do that sheet that shows how many portables at each school. That might be a good thing to bring.
It will, but as a matter of fact, we discussed that today. We're still working on that to find out. Typically, they'll submit, we need X number of portables.
Right.
We'll counter that with, is there any way you could get by for one more year, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. So, I mean, we can give you what the preliminary is, or if you can sit tight, we'll give you something more definitive in about 2 to 4 weeks, whatever you want.
Well, I was just saying you could bring the one that's in effect right now, not next year.
Oh, you're talking about this
Yeah,
year?
yeah. And then
Okay.
bring that when you get it. I
Yeah,
think that'd
okay.
be good. I think that would address what Grant
Okay.
is asking. Other questions on the consent agenda? Okay. Tomorrow night, we'll have Mr. Crockett here to bestow upon us the Board of Distinction plaque. Thank you, Joyce, for all your work to make that happen. Number 8.
Special courses request, instruction department is requesting permission to make an application to offer credit for special courses under the following guidelines. Rule 520-1-3-.05-2A, local school systems may offer special courses not listed in 520-1-3-.06 on an experimental basis. The Commissioner of Education must approve these courses in advance each year. After 3 years, the course may become a permanent part of the local school program upon approval by the State Board of Education. After 3 years, a special course request must be submitted if the teacher listed on the application changes. And we'll make a motion that you approve the Rutherford County making application for new special courses to be offered in the named schools in 2012, 2013 as presented. They're reflected in, I believe it's tab 2.
Tim?
ACT prep, that's been approved at other high schools. So it has to be done, Central Magnet just happens to be a new school and has to go through that process. It's not a system-wide thing.
They do not give to you system-wide, school by school.
I got you. Okay.
Other questions? Let's see. None?
Courses offered for credit in grades 9 through 12. The Board Education Policy 4.201 states in part, a listing of courses offered for credit in grades 9 through 12 will be approved annually by the board. We'll recommend that you approve the list of courses for credit in Rutherford County 9-12 for 2012-13 as presented.
Discussion or questions on that list? Tom?
This, the advanced classes, seemed like I read where that we have honors English, we have regular English, honors English, advanced English, and then advanced English, or something like that. What?
It typically, see, your AP courses occur junior and senior year. So usually they don't do advanced when they go to AP. Mr. Tackett can probably answer there. It's been in place for a number of years. You have your standard, your honors, advanced honors, and it usually turns to AP.
That'd be, yeah, so it's kind of same, you'll have 3 levels, just a matter of what the naming of them would be. There's not a 4th level. Sounded like that's what you were kind of going to. There's not a 4th layer. You got standard, honors, advanced honors, or AP, depending on what it'll be called, or in the case of Oakland, I guess if they've got an IB, English, I would think.
Different path, actually.
Okay.
Well, English, honors English, advanced honors English, advanced placement English, and then English communication for life. Of course, we've got gateway English and all that.
That communication for life is a technical path. For so it depends upon the grade level that you happen to be. What Don was saying, at English, at freshman level, you'd have standard, honors, and advanced honors. At the junior level, it'd be standard, honors, AP. It just gets a different name.
Start making distinctions.
Right.
More distinctions.
And then, I guess at the senior level, if I'm not mistaken, is when that technology for life or whatever the course is called.
That's really for your kids who are struggling a little bit more, and it's more of a hands-on for us to get your other credit in English.
Well, when I looked at that, and we've talked about this before, I think, is class size. And of course, class size has been in the news a lot lately. And when I saw that, well, we're making so many distinctions here, how are the class loads within those areas?
Well, it does impact it because, like, in particular, your advanced placement, they'll end up with 15 and sometimes fewer, some of those advanced honors. And oftentimes, the class that ought to have smaller sizes would be the standard. They end up with 30, and the upper level courses end up with 15, and that's sad, but that's just the nature of the business. I mean, you want to offer those accelerated kids opportunities, such as advanced placement or advanced honors, but there's not as many that are really capable of taking those courses. So it's kind of a catch-22 from that perspective.
But we're looking at 15 as kind of the cutoff mark. I believe
Yeah,
that's.
we've tried to adhere to that. I can't say that there hadn't been situations where there's been fewer than that. For example, you start out in Latin 1, Latin 2, and you get to Latin beyond that, there only may be 12 or 13 that take it. And the question is, do you cut it off and infuriate, parents and minimize opportunities for kids, or do you allow it to happen? And so we try to balance that. We actually had a discussion today about ways to start limiting some of that, and I don't want this to play out the wrong way, but to try to reduce maybe some of the number of teachers the high schools get because of secondary duties like supervision, coming to school early, or something else, you know, monitoring this, monitoring that. In particular, Mr. Paul mentioned, Ms. Barnes mentioned, you know, maybe we could make and again, we have concentrated on doing this, it's just difficult to wrap your arms around it, but with respect to the content areas, we may just say, hey, if you're a content area teacher, you're not getting a second planning period, you're not gonna do any supervision. If you're a math teacher, you're teaching 6. But yet at the same time, that's an important part of the school day that you get the supervision in there, but it's tough to maximize use in those schools. But we're trying.
If it's some foreign language allowed, though, to put, like Latin 3 and 4 together.
Yeah, exactly.
Other questions on the courses? Okay, number 10.
Facilities. There's been an easement request pursuant to Mr. Schreiber's property on Bulldog Drive, and before I say anything else, I'm gonna turn it over to Jeff Reed and let Jeff take the ball with that one.
As the board may remember, last board meeting, the board agreed to enter into an arrangement with Mr. Schreiman for the dedication of Bulldog Drive. As you remember, the Bulldog Drive as it currently exists is halfway on our property, the school board property, and halfway on Mr. Schreiman's adjacent property. So right now, the way the current Bulldog Drive is located is we only really only own half of the road. And it's been like that for a number of years. And looking at the history of this thing, back when Smyrna High School was first built, it looked like it was originally contemplated that eventually a public road would be dedicated along where the Bulldog Drive is today. For whatever reason, that public road was never built. So Bulldog Drive has remained as a private driveway over the years for a long time now. The board had agreed with Mr. Schreiman in exchange for him paying for all the improvements to Bulldog Drive, paying for the dedication of the road, all the costs associated with building the road, installing sidewalks on the school board side of the property, and in exchange for him donating several acres to the school board to accommodate their parking in the future, that the board would agree to allow a plat to be signed to dedicate Bulldog Drive as a public road. That agreement has been done, that agreement has been signed. After that, I received a phone call from Ms. Imogene Boland, who represents Mr. Schreiman, I guess a week or two ago, asking for an additional easement that they thought they needed to get the project done. There's been lots of moving parts with respect to that, because I understand Mr. Schreiman's had a number of meetings with Smyrna with respect to what utility requirements he would have to meet with respect to the road, and what kind of bonding requirements he'd have to meet to satisfy the town of Smyrna. Those meetings and discussions have continued to be going on between Mr. Schreiman and the town of Smyrna. Even as recently as this afternoon, there was further discussions with him now. But Ms. Boland is requesting an easement to be entered by the Board of Education between the board and the apartment complex developer. And I can turn it over to Ms. Boland. She can explain what she needs and why she needs it, if that's acceptable to the board.
That's fine. Any questions for Jeff before he turns it over, or we'll come back to you if we have any. Ms. Boland, welcome.
Thank you, sir. Well, I think by way of opening, there are 3 law firms involved. And anytime you've got 3 law firms involved, you're going to get some differences in interpretation. Now, and I didn't get this last request until just a few days ago, but what it hinges on, they're not concerned at all about our agreements with each other, most of them, but they became, the third law firm that is writing the title insurance for the bank became absolutely freaked over the term temporary construction easement. So they want us, and the crux of this thing is, of course, between the buyer and the seller. And what they really want us to do is to say that the Board of Education and Dr. Schreibman will grant each other a permanent easement, the board to its section of Bulldog Drive down to the center of it, and Dr. Schreibman for his section down to the center of it. Maybe they think somebody is going to erect a barbed wire fence, I don't know. But at any rate, they want the language to read that it will be a permanent easement terminable upon the recording of the plat. And of course, the plat is going to show Bulldog Drive as a permanent city street, and based upon that, the town of Smyrna has agreed that once the construction is finished, everything is approved, then of course Bulldog Drive becomes a city street. So it's a question of, they don't want us to use the word temporary construction easement. We have to use permanent terminal easement. And if you, ladies and gentlemen, can tell the difference between that, then I don't know. That's the crux of what they want us to do. I don't think it has a great deal of difference one way or the other. Naturally, Mr. Reed wants to be sure that we toe the mark on anything, and in reading what you were authorizing us to do, then both of us felt like we ought to come back and explain the language to you before we went through the formality of Dr. Burns signing a new document. The good news is this buyer has been breathing down my neck for the last month to get started. They want to get started on the construction the 27th day of February, and they want to be finished with Bulldog Drive and out of there by the middle of August. So,
Okay.
if there's anything further that you might ask of me.
Questions from Ms. Bowen? Terry, you?
I guess, this would be for Mr. Reed, I guess.
Okay.
What's the difference between a temporary easement versus permanent?
Well, a temporary easement is like you say, it's a temporary easement, doesn't stay there forever. A permanent easement is it's an easement that would be there forever, here on more, for the benefit of the current owner, probably any successors and assigns, so if that person ever sold the property, that easement would still be there. It would encumber the property and be there forever. If I gave you a permanent easement, that's something you could convey along and give that to your successor in title. If you sold the property, it could be conveyed 200 years from now. So a temporary easement is, like the name entails, a temporary easement for a specified amount of time.
But if I remember correctly, if all this stuff goes through with the traffic light and all that, the town of Smyrna will get it anyhow, correct?
Yeah, ultimately, Bulldog Drive, if all this goes as planned, then ultimately, Bulldog Drive will be dedicated as a public road, which will be a permanent public dedicated road at that point. The town of Smyrna will be required to maintain that road, maintain all the infrastructure associated with the road, and then the Board of Education and the public would have a right to use that road.
Is there a potential consequence for us making it a permanent easement versus a temporary? And if so, what is it?
Well, the issue here is the easement agreements that's been presented is an easement agreement between the board and Rutherford Housing Partners LP, which is the developer of the apartment complex. And the form that's being presented to the board, I really cannot recommend the board approving because it does not incorporate the terms of Mr. Schreiben's agreement with the board. So as I told Ms. Bowen, this easement agreement would need to go back and be revised to incorporate the terms that we've agreed to with Mr. Schreiben, to make sure those would be honored with respect to the easement agreement. Because as the easement agreement currently reads, it's just a easement agreement between the board and the apartment complex.
I don't see any problem with that at all, because simply wanting to get this language changed so that the title insurance company will issue that title commitment letter, which later, once we dedicate the street anyway, it's same thing.
I guess, what if things go along here and they never get the traffic signal? What do you have there?
We would have a public street, I think, or we would have Bulldog Drive in a situation to where it was clear that both parties would have access back and forth without going to court.
Just like what we're talking about, we've got equal access, he's got half and we got half right now. So, but just thinking about it, doing something on a permanent basis, and this thing doesn't go through, to me, it looks like we're giving up, our rights to it.
I would say, with respect to the easement agreement, the current form that's been presented, I cannot really recommend the board signing it. I think it would have to be revised and incorporate the terms that we agreed to with Mr. Strymon. There would need to be some other provisions added in there to protect the board, because with the easement, as it currently reads, it's just a pure easement. There's no caveats to it, there's no conditions to it, there's no contingencies to it, there's no requirements on the part of Mr. Strymon or on the part of the housing developer. So, that being the case, until all that stuff got plugged into the easement agreement, I don't think the board really is in a position to look at it. So I think that needs to be done first, because we have, the agreement we entered with Mr. Strymon, made sure that the road was going to be dedicated, made sure he was going to finish the sidewalks, made sure that he was going to be donating the property he had agreed to donate to the board, and all that would happen, with regard to the board's agreement to sign the plat to dedicate the road. So the board was protected in that agreement. This current agreement does not have those terms incorporated into it. Conceptually, it could, but I think it's going to take some work on all the attorney's part who's involved with this deal to get that done. It's not quite done yet. So I think, and I think it's hopeful, I think Ms. Bowman's hopeful maybe get this back to the board tomorrow night and maybe have it in final form that incorporates some of those terms, which that may happen with a number of attorneys involved with it. Frankly, I'd be surprised if that happens by tomorrow.
Now, let's say this, that under the original wording of the motion that was passed, it has to comply with whatever Mr. Reed feels is in the board's best interest anyway. So I think all we're asking tonight is for you to not approve this easement, but to allow us to modify it to comply with what he's asking us to do. And I sort of disagree with him. I think once the telephone call is made tonight or in the morning, that they will, meaning the law firm there in Nashville, will be happy to rewrite this thing to tie it into the other agreement and make it quite clear that what we're going to do is exactly what we were going to do to begin with, and that is, as soon as that final plat is recorded and it becomes a city street, then we're right exactly back where we started, and that that temporary construction easement becomes a permanent city street, which is what we all agree together.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Yeah, we're talking about Diamond G a long time, and I certainly say this respectfully. I just think all of us up here, in my conversation, Dr. Berg will feel comfortable acting on anything Mr. Reed recommended. And I think it would behoove the board to wait until there's a document in hand that addresses all those items, in which case I think we can take a strong look at
Well,
approval.
I frankly think we can have it revised to where Mr. Reed is not all that big of a thing to do.
Okay. Grant?
If we do, then obviously that's gonna go straight on through. If you don't, then you might have to do a
That's
little more
exactly
discussion.
Aaron?
Are there any contingencies currently in effect in the agreement that's in place right now that if any of this does not come to pass, does everything revert back to what it was?
There's termination provisions in the current provision.
So that's not affected by what Terry was asking about the temporary versus permanent. Say we sign the permanent thing, the whole deal falls apart, the construction's not done, it still reverts back?
It would be as it is today.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So we'll be no better off or worse off than we
Yeah.
are today.
Well, in a way, you would be worse off if the whole thing fell through, because you don't get the 30 acres of land.
We would not get the donated land.
Tim?
I think what I heard Mr. Gill say, I would agree with, that when the document's presented by Mr. Reed that he feels comfortable with, I'll be good to go with it.
I predict smooth sailing if you bring such a document, and Jeff is
We'll
here
look
to.
at it and see what we can get done one day.
Yeah.
So miracles do happen.
Anything else? Well, Ms. Boland, thank you for coming. Mr. Schreiber, appreciate it. B.
Blackman High School metal storage building, Principal Gail Vick is requesting permission to construct a 12 by 16-foot metal storage building at the end of the softball field bullpen at Blackman High School. Blackman High School will follow all applicable codes and obtain all applicable permits. Storage building will be constructed at no cost to the board, and we'll recommend that you do that.
Questions? Grant?
I know this is fairly routine, and we see these every month, but usually we get where the source of the money is. Somebody's donating something, I mean, somebody's got to pay for it, it's coming out of,
Well, I'm sure that the softball team has generated funds to do that. It would have to, I mean, they couldn't take it out of a restricted school account, but I'm sure it's the softball team's
I figured it would be, but like I said, we usually have them kind of narrowed down, you know, so I want to change that language.
C.
Rock Springs Elementary School walking track. Principal Lewis has requested permission to construct a walking track on the campus of Rock Springs Elementary School. The track will be 200 meters in length and constructed of pervious concrete and funded by a grant from United Way with help from Middle Tennessee State University Concrete Department. Recommend that you do that.
Discussion?
And this one's pretty well, got it tagged down, I think.
Let's see, 11.
Financial matters, direct deposit for all employees. The Rutherford County Finance Department is moving towards requiring direct deposit for all county and board employees paid by the courthouse. This change will be effective for all new employees beginning April the 1st, 2012, and for all existing employees beginning January the 1st, 2013. Interim employees may still get paper paychecks. For employees without a bank or credit union account, a Visa paid card will be issued to SunTrust Bank and their vendor, Skylight Financial. This pay card is a debit card that can be used without charge at all point ATMs, stores that accept debit cards, and at banks that accept Visa cards. There is a charge for using SunTrust ATM. Skylight also offers paper checks that can be used at SunTrust Bank to withdraw all available cash remaining on an employee's pay card. Our employees with these pay cards can even set up automatic withdrawals for their recurring bills. We've looked at other pay card products in the past, but this is the first product we've seen with cost-free options for both employee and employer. And if I was giving you the Cliff Note version of that, there's about 600 employees in the county apparently that don't currently have direct payment, and they're targeting the county as these 600 people to partake in that endeavor, the direct deposit endeavor. If not, as it says, they'll get a Visa card, a paid Visa card, in which case they can use it at all the areas that we've talked about. So that's the goal here, and that was Lisa Nolan and her committee's work, wasn't it, Jeff?
Yes, sir.
Terry?
I'm just curious to know what the reasoning is.
The reason for doing that,
Yeah.
it's pretty expensive to cut paper checks, it takes time, postage, all those kinds of deals. Yeah. Pay it, staffing, it's just costly.
It's over my head.
No, I don't think so. I think if you just
I
think about it, you'll get every bit of it.
Yeah, I understand.
Aaron?
Once the Visa cards are issued, are they reloaded then,
Yes.
each pay period?
Yeah.
Other discussion? Okay, policy manual review. Discussion on any of those policies. General discussion. Wayne?
Mr. Kelly and I attended the TSBA Day on the Hill, the breakfast this morning, and then went over to Legislative Plaza. We visited all the offices of our 2 senators and our 3 representatives, but they were all in committee. But we let them know that we were present. We left our cards there. We brought back the House and Senate bills dealing with education that I apologize, I scribbled on them before I gave them to Joyce, but the ones that have little asterisks are ones that the TSBA initiated. So those are near and dear to our heart, and you can see that there's actually 2 pages front and back with legislative action that TSBA is supporting, and those that TSBA is opposing. And certainly would ask you to read over all the sheets and give our legislative body your opinion.
Thank you, Wayne.
Comment.
Sure.
With respect to general discussion, we had a meeting this morning, I think 9:30 at the Nashville Public Library with the Commissioner of Education, the superintendent did, and he went over the new waiver and did a really good job explaining it. Also gave us a PowerPoint presentation, which I have one, and I thought at the next meeting, maybe Mr. Odom and myself would do a kind of a presentation on what the new
That'd be
waiver, includes and how it'll impact schools. I think much more appealing than what we had. The challenges will certainly still be there, but there's some common sense involved in this versus some of the things No Child Left Behind lacked. So we'll do that next time.
Okay, sounds good. Wayne?
And the value-added scores, all 5s, pretty impressive. Anybody else in the state get all 5s?
There were a few,
What?
but even though you got 5s, I think we kind of, Mr. Odom and myself, kind of analyzed the amount of growth in various content areas, and I don't know that anybody outperformed us. If they did, there were a few that might have been up there with us, but pretty good, incredible work by the teachers and also the principals and our staff. And the things that we put in place over the years have paid off. Good principals, good. The PLCs are now recognized system-wide as a valuable tool. And I read Mr. Rake's comments the other day that, it's the first time people were working together, sharing ideas, sharing thoughts. It's paid off. So it's a good job by everyone.
Mr. Gill, is a layman's term for value-added, would achievement be a good layman's term?
A growth would be more appropriate.
Growth, okay.
Yeah, an achievement. And the only thing we don't like, Don and I and Paula were talking today about the the waiver and the new testing mechanisms that are in place and the guidelines that we use is based more on achievement rather than value added, which puts some systems at a distinct advantage over other systems because they've got kids that are going to achieve for various reasons, and some that some that don't are going to be failing schools again. But anyway, we'll discuss that more in detail.
I'll be interested to hear more about that. It sounds like a step backward as far as I can tell, but,
Yeah.
well, the root systems are gonna do well if you focus on
Absolutely.
achievement. I mean,
That's
that's the
what's gonna
bottom
happen.
line. Okay, other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I
sir.
had occasion today to visit with Bob Horn, principal at Christiana Middle School, and he gave me a nice tour of his building and got me into 6 or 7 different classrooms. And anybody that thinks that there's not great education taking place in this system, they need to get out and see what I saw. I mean, it was 1:30 in the afternoon, and every classroom we popped our head into was active and busy, and teachers were enthusiastic. It was uplifting to see what was going on. So I think Mr. Horn and all that goes on, and I'm satisfied that's certainly not the only school that's taking place.
Thank you, Tim. Other discussion? As a reminder, we're meeting tomorrow night at 5 for our regular board meeting. And with that, we are adjourned.